Where would a centaur's heart and organs be? In the human chest or in the horse's chest? Neither. They would be wherever centaur organs are. I am willing to accept this answer and never talk about it again. Both two hearts that beat as one. I saw this and was like, oh, this is easy. Wait, what? They should be in the back half. And the human torso should basically just be an extended neck. Otherwise that boy is going to get heavy. Maybe they're top heavy and that's why they always have such killer abs. I would argue that the lungs and heart large enough to support a body that size wouldn't fit in the human torso and therefore would be in the horse torso. While we're at it, two sets of lungs wouldn't work well for a few reasons. One being the hassle of trying to maintain two areas, separate areas of negative pressure in the same body, to say nothing of how both sets of lungs would functionally connect to the same trachea. That being said, a human-sized trachea the length of a human torso attached to a horse's lungs would be subject to some seriously damaging vacuum forces. You'd need a larger diameter aperture closer to the lungs. Clearly, centaurs have lungs in their horse half and breath through their anus. Oh man, I just looked up horse lungs. Those things are bigger than a human torso. Like a third of the inside of a horse is its lungs. Greater than a human-sized trachea the length of a human torso attached to a horse's lungs would be subject to some seriously damaging vacuum forces. I think the solution to this is to put a horse trachea through a human torso. It's got the room since it doesn't have organs in it. And a horse neck is pretty similar in size to a human torso, so the length isn't a problem. Alternate solution though is to put breathing openings at the base of the human torso. Sort of like a lamprey has. A human nose definitely isn't big enough to intake enough air for a horse either. Maybe breathing through the mouth is sufficient. More likely an alternate air intake is necessary. Again, lamprey-style neck holes. They would be larger and spread out. Heart and chest. Lungs and stomach. Horse would be stomach and digestional tract. This makes sense, considering the centaur probably has a human-like diet rather than a horse diet. It definitely gets away with a smaller digestive system than a horse emo. Also, horse lungs are straight up bigger than a human torso. So those are staying in the horse body. And since the joint area, as it were, would need to be fairly muscular, really any encroachment of the lungs out of the horse body wouldn't be possible. I don't think. What have you done? Realistically, I imagine they'd need both hearts to pump enough blood to power both bodies combined. All the extra blood vessels would be too much for just one heart. Good answer. C.S. Lewis suggested that they have duplicate stomachs, which by reasonable extension would mean duplicates of every organ normally in that section. Someone saw that mythical creature anatomy post earlier today. Link? Human centauropede. Op asking the right questions. AAAAGGGH. This is hurting my brain. The mental picture is so unpleasant. Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. The centaur's human torso are just filled with lungs. Like a third of the inside of a horse's lungs. An entire human torso is smaller than horse lungs. There's probably no need for larger lungs. If anything, the human torso needs a good part of it dedicated to the throat. Because horse lungs would implode a human one. Maybe an exaggeration. If you Google a centaur digestive system, your question will be answered, unfortunately. In a container sitting on the same warehouse as the Ark of the Covenant. Being examined by top men. Top men. Better question is, where would centaur breast be, on the human body or the horse part? I think this depends on how social the centaurs are. A centaur mother could probably lift its child to breastfeed it, or kneel down. But if they aren't heavily social creatures, or if they move around a lot, like horses, then doing so presents something of a risk. On the other hand, horse nipples allow a baby centaur to feed and stop feeding with no requirement from the mother but to stand around. but this may be detrimental for mother-child bonding if they're a highly social species like humans. I guess it would be double everything? Asterisk both asterisk. In the horse chest. Because a human heart cannot flow blood through an entire centaur body, you need a horse heart for that. This is pretty funny. The configuration of centaurs has always seemed strange to me. People generally refer to them as half human and half horse. But they're really more like 3/4 of a horse and half of a human. Where are the heart, lungs and other organs? Are they redundant? If so, can they keep living if one heart is destroyed and not the other? If they're not redundant, is one of the chest cavities just empty? If we're assuming the centaur came into being through Darwinian evolution, then it shouldn't be treated as half anything. It's one whole centaur. If the upper section doesn't contain organs, it wouldn't just be empty. It would need a huge throat compared to a human to deal with the forces imparted by how fuck-off gigantic horse lungs are. At bare minimum, other than that, it probably just has more muscle groups than a human torso does. What about land gills? I am thinking something similar in appearance to lamprey gills. Look them up if you don't know what they look like. They're weird, but functionally they'd have to be just like nostrils really. I assume there's a reason gills aren't used by any living organism to breathe air. Centaurs are warlike and aggressive creatures, meaning they would likely have 2 sets of organs, in case one is destroyed or punched on the battlefield. I would say the digestive tract would be more focused in the human torso, and the lungs and heart solely on the horse. It would also be advantageous because the human torso should be more exposed to arrows and whatnot. Another issue is the brain. Bigger body means bigger brain for complete control. So the whole thing is stupefied. Or the human torso has a secondary, the whole brain in its chest, which also doesn't make much sense. Due to sensory input, maybe 2 brains is the answer. The human torso would be a long and buff neck with hands, and the horse torso will contain all the organs that could support its life. Both centaurs don't have a horse's chest. A centaur doesn't, but a centaur does. Both that are just curved and probably massive compared to a normal humans. But would they have human or horse cocks? What, are you a size queen? I think the organs would be in the centaur's head because, like, seriously, who has organs in their bodies nowadays? Well, I'm pretty sure the heart is supposed to be near the lungs. So since there is only one mouth and nose, there would be one respiratory system and therefore one heart. And it would be in the human chest. I'm not sure about the other organs though. Have you seen how big a horse's heart and lungs are though? They do not fit in a human torso. The human torso needs either a heavily reinforced throat running through it. A human torso isn't any longer than a horse neck anyway. Or a breathing opening closer to the joint area. Especially since a human head really can't intake enough air to fill horse lungs. Double of everything, since either would be too much or too little to support either half. While some ancillary organs might reside in the human-formed torso, the overall size of the creature means that all organs for primary life support function would have to reside in the equine torso, as it would be the only cavity large enough to accommodate the necessary size of the organs which would be needed for breathing, pumping oxygen, filtering, digestion, etc. A centaur really isn't all that much bigger than a horse. Horse necks and heads are gigantic. And if centaurs have a human-like diet rather than eating grass, they save a lot of space on digestive systems. 2. Up his butt. Maybe 2 hearts. Maybe they'd probably have 2. Both. Why not have 2 of each organ's human heart in the human part, horse heart in the horse part? If one gets damaged, then the other takes over while it repairs. Circulatory and respiratory system could be on the human chest for the air easily entering the lungs and for the blood easily reaching its brain. The gastrointestinal, excretory system will go to the horse portion so that waste will exit the organism faster. They have two. The horse heart is slightly smaller than a normal horse's as it only serves the legs and body, while the human heart is slightly bigger than a normal human's to function as the primary function. Heart for brain activity and as a redundancy in case the horse heart is compromised. But neither have adequate ability to function as the sole heart for any extended period of time. Thank you so much for watching and have a good day.